Welcome to Sportsnet's digital studios. My name's Amit, Mann, here to catch you up on everything to do with Canada Basketball at Paris 2024. The men's team are off to the quarters. They win against Spain 88-85. They finished 3-0 in group play. Man, Spain put up a huge fight. They were desperate, but it did not work out. Looking at the game story here. So yes, Canada wins 88-85. They certainly had to bend a lot, damn near doing the twister, but they did not break. Spain's bench outscored Canada's 50-30. Offensive rebounding was a problem for the squad, 17-8. Spain advantage and ball movement was good in this one. 21 assists, tied for the tournament high. And Andrew Nembhard, his best game by far in the tournament, 21 minutes, 18 points, 8 of 10, 1 steal. What a great game for Canada. And joining me now, a man with a wicked jumper, someone you can find his work on sportsnet.ca. It's Michael 3-Point Grange. Hi, Grange.
Hello. Hey, Amit. Thanks for having me on.
I'm happy to have you on, sir. So this game, it got very close down the stretch. What do you think changed from the Canadian side?
Well, I think that, what really they were doing really well in the first half especially is they were really getting into the ball. Especially Lorenzo Brown, and I think he forced him into 5 turnovers. He was the starting point guard, and Lou Dort especially, but pretty much everybody. I thought Lou kind of set the tone, and the defensive sort of chest to chest, hands into the body type approach that Canada had going in the first half was nullified. And I got to give credit to Spain for that. I mean, they went away from Brown. They got more shooters on the floor. They had the floor a little bit more spread out. And I think Canada, as a result, had to switch a little bit more, and that left them a bit vulnerable in terms of offensive rebounds for Spain. And obviously you've got a little bit more offensive talent on the floor. So I think credit to Spain. Canada looked a little flustered at times, maybe for the first time in this tournament. Even gilgeous-alexander had a few possessions that I'm sure he would like back. But as you point out, they did enough. And in the end, they accomplished, pretty tall order, going undefeated in that group.
And so they went small down the stretch, and you mentioned like some of the size issues. Out rebounding down the stretch was a problem. There was a lot of balls that were kind of 50-50 balls, but they ended up going to Spain. And Jordy decided to go that route. They went small, and I was a little bit puzzled at the decision. I understand, getting skinny around screens, the screen navigation, they're going to switch everything, but it did leave them vulnerable at several different spots on the court. Your thoughts on that? Like Dwight Powell probably would have helped down the stretch.
Yeah, I think it's, I think you just have to make a choice sometimes as a coach, and having more players on the floor who can switch, and then just put the onus on your guys to be aggressive and physical on the rebounding end. Keeping in mind, like Spain, they were without their primary bigs, right? So Hernan Gomez had foul trouble, and their sort of next center was, I'm not going to try his name, but he was off the floor as well. So I mean, Spain was playing small also, and we've seen that over and over again, where you kind of look like you might want to go big against a smaller lineup, but it ends up you end up paying, because especially if a team like Spain is looking to get up as many threes as they are. So I think it really was just a decision to kind of just make sure Spain just didn't kind of shoot themselves in. Well, they did shoot themselves into the game, but just really catch fire from 3, and all of a sudden you got an avalanche on your hands. So that's the best I can interpret it.
Yeah, I mean, Sergio Llull, he was terrific in this one. He's kind of a spark plug off their bench. And their bench, as I said earlier, outscores Canada's 50-30. And the second unit that Jordy is trying to get, as a mold going forward, Jamal Murray, Andrew Nembhard and company, it's been a little bit up and down. And definitely in this one, I mean, you can look at it as Spain. They got depth. They had a good shooting night. But do you feel like they're finding chemistry, or are there still some wrinkles in what they're looking to do going forward?
Still looks a little shaky to me. I mean, I think, if you're going to be optimistic, I thought, I wondered how Nembhard would play, having got that nice long run in the game against Australia when Shea was in foul trouble. And lo and behold, he was outstanding. You're still waiting for Jamal Murray to kind of really feel his legs and be able to assert himself the way we know he can. I thought Jamal did struggle defensively. now for the second straight game. So that's kind of an issue, right? Is you want to go to a second unit. I think on paper, having Nemhard and Jamal Murray should give you an advantage against almost any other team, certainly any other team's second unit. But, the amount of motion that Spain was running and the off-ball actions, that stuff I thought Jamal struggled at times with that. And, and then offensively, he's new to this team. He's new to this group. He's been around them. He knows them, but he really hasn't put a lot of minutes in with them. And so I think at times, I actually kind of appreciate the fact that he's willing to maybe dial it back a little bit and play within the flow. I thought his playmaking today was very good. And allow it, all of his abilities to kind of emerge when they're kind of good and ready. So, but on the whole, that second unit on paper, like it should be, again, better than any second unit in the tournament outside maybe Team USA, obviously. And they just haven't quite delivered. On the positive end, I thought Gilgeous-Alexander Walker was his best. Again, it looks a little bit like that Nemhard game the other day, where maybe the numbers don't necessarily jump off the page, but I thought his overall aggressiveness, confidence, certainly his defensive activity was maybe the best we've seen. And the point is to be as good as you can in the medal round, not at this stage. So there's still room to grow.
Yeah, and it's great that Nikhil got those minutes. He was so instrumental in their qualifier last year, and his screen navigation probably was a reason why he got a little bit more run today than previous games. With Jamal Murray, just sticking on him for a second, he did have 6 assists, 4 rebounds, and he did feel like he was a bit more shifty in his crossovers. He had a few passes right off drives that led to buckets. Do you feel like you're seeing a change in how he's moving defensively? It's still a little bit but offensively, we're starting to see that Jamal.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming in stages. I thought he was a lot better against Australia than he was against Greece. I guess you could say he was probably better against Spain in a very competitive game than he was against Australia, so probably trending in the right way. But, where I noticed it certainly was defensively. He had some good moments, and he competed hard in some stretches, but he also, it's not like that's his calling card anyway, but it's an area that he can still improve. So, and that's what's exciting maybe about this team is that they are 3-0. They've beaten 3 really, really good teams. And I'm not sure we've seen anything close to their best game yet. We've seen some really good performances, but, have they kind of hit on all cylinders quite yet? I don't think so.
Yeah, so we're waiting to find out what happens between France and Germany in a matchup that's happening at 3:30, I believe, today, and we'll understand where Canada is going to be in seeding-wise in the quarterfinals. But yeah, they're in a really good spot to have a decent matchup, one that's not going to be an overwhelming USA, France, Germany, some kind of matchup like that. You mentioned Andrew Nembhard, and also just going forward, and you want to be playing your best basketball in the medal round. And he felt like he was in his most comfortable position. He was handling the ball down the stretch, hit a few really nice shots. What do you think has been going into kind of his early struggles and how he's transitioned into the player he is today for Canada?
Yeah, again, I think Andrew's calling card is he is sort of a fit-in guy. That's very much by choice. I think he's capable, and you see it, and we've seen it certainly in his NBA career that when the green light is there, he can really he has a lot more assertive offensive game than maybe he profiles. And so, but his nature, I think what makes him a really valuable player and a really good teammate is he kind of feels his way into a situation, gives a team what it needs, gives a game what it needs. And so again, much like Jamal Murray, he is brand new to this team. It's one thing, sure, all these guys. He goes back with RJ and Nikhil and Shea and those, and all of them to literally minor basketball at 8 or 9 years old. But, playing against each other coming up and all of those kinds of things. But this is a new team, new coach, new environment. And so there's going to be a feeling out process. And I think what you saw today was he said, yeah, I felt enough and I'm going to, do what I can do to affect the game, especially on offense. And he's an emerging shooter, right? Look the way he shot the ball for the Pacers in the playoffs. I think it was 44% from 3 during the playoffs, and made a big number of threes as well. And that's been a product of a lot of work. I wrote a feature on him before the Olympics and talked to one of the assistant coaches Indiana, Jenny Busick, who's worked with him very, very closely. I got to see one of their workouts, and just a very meticulous kind of strategic approach to him developing his shooting mechanics and his shooting feel, and it's paying off. And so I think, today he got going early, hit a couple open threes, some nice chemistry between him and Jamal at times in that situation. And then I think once he saw the ball go in the basket, he was just going for it. And, he's got a pretty complete offensive game. And Canada, I think he was a very, very important pickup for Canada for exactly what we saw today, just as a guy who, can generate offense all by himself as well as the rest of his contributions. And, whenever a team, goes out of their way to sign, to give an extension to a guy like literally about 24 hours after he was eligible for it, at this stage of his career, I mean, it's a pretty good sign, right? The Pacers know what they got. They want to lock him up at what's going to be a team-friendly deal as soon as possible. So good to see him kind of finding his legs.
Team friendly, but also a big payday for him. That's no question about that. The jumper was falling, and also his floaters. That's an area where he's obviously very effective in the NBA. And so far in FIBA, not so much. And also Jamal Murray, that floater hasn't really worked out for him either. But obviously more games to come, and they're still finding their groove. Has there anything, final question for you, has anything surprised you about this team so far, or does it feel like they're kind of going the course which you expected as they continue to, again, improve going into the quarterfinals?
I'm surprised at how impactful they are when Lou Dort and Dylan Brooks are on the floor. Which shouldn't be that surprising, but it kind of, when Jordi Fernandez was in training camp, the players were in training camp here in Toronto, and there's so much discussion about defense, and and with Jamal in the mix, Andrew Demhart in the mix, well, who would be starting? But, the fact that he stuck with Lou and Dylan in his starting lineup, and then you look at the plus minus numbers, I think they were combined plus 76 and 88 minutes, or maybe the reverse, plus 88 and 76 minutes, some crazy numbers for 2 games. And, when plus minus is that big, you got to pay attention. And I'm sure, I haven't looked, but I'm sure they were, they had a really good plus today as well. And
only plus 4 actually, but yeah.
There we go. Okay. Well, the game, they only won by 3. So
this is true.
But when you look at that first half and how disruptive they were, especially with Lou getting into the ball handler, and then that option of having Lou on your primary ball handler and Dylan on your primary offensive wing, let's say, that's really tough to deal with. And a lot of teams maybe have one guy like that, and you can kind of, you win one of those matchups, but you have a good chance to win both of those matchups. And, again, Team USA, different category. But so I think that's maybe what surprised me is look, we knew what SGA brings. You can kind of go through the lineup, and we're still waiting a little bit for Jamal, but, I'm sure it's going to come. But the impact of having one of those guys on the floor at almost all times, and 2 of them at times, has been a real weapon for Canada.
Yeah, they've been terrific. RJ Barrett as well has been very good. Grange, thanks so much for joining us. Sportsnet.ca, you can find all of his work. Appreciate you, sir.
All right, Amit, take care.
Thank you, sir. So a few more points from this game. As Grange was talking about, Dylan Brooks and Lou Dort, just superb on both ends. Their screen navigation, the way they're able to get skinny, but also be wide going around those screens. With Spain, there is so much switching happening, and you're usually comfortable doing those switches against them because they don't have a lot of downhill penetration, but you got to have your head on a swivel constantly, and you got to be so disciplined on the defensive end. You got to stay locked in for those 24 seconds or whatever it is in FIBA. I'm not even sure, actually. But anyways, you got to stay locked in for that whole possession. Also, you have to get the offensive rebound, which was a problem for Canada. But anyways, those two are proving to be so valuable, much more than even I expected so far in the tournament. Dylan Brooks, his scoring has been really popping for me. In this game, he had it was 13 points, but also his passing was very effective today. And for a player like him, who's usually more of a knockdown shooter, he's able to put the ball on the floor. He loves that two-foot jump stop and into a jumper. He had 3 assists, a couple of turnovers, but that's okay because he's making the right play. And again, Canada, their ball movement, they're really starting to understand how teams are going to guard them against against that zone today. They get the ball in the middle of the floor, and they're making the proper decisions out of it. They're finding those 2-on-1 advantages, whether it's a 2-3 zone, you get a high pick and roll, or maybe Andrew Nembhard was very good splitting that 2-3 zone and going into the middle and making shots from there. They've been very effective at it, and those decisions, they're happening a lot faster than they were a few games ago. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, again, another great game from him. He was causing a lot of problems for Spain, and some of his passes, obviously his shot making. He got a few free throws. He drew 7 fouls today, and some of those maybe were debatable, at least from the Spain side of things. But overall, a lot of tough shots, and he continues to just keep on making the right play. There was one possession where he didn't actually make the shot, but he drove the basket. He stopped on a dime during a step back on a crossover, and then he went towards the basket again. He didn't make the shot. There was help defense, and it was nullified. But the fact he can do that, it's so sudden, so quick that he can do that, and he can change directions. It's very effective. And aside from that, looking at the team now, so Kelly Olynyk, he played a little bit today, but it's like his role has been slowly diminishing. You're seeing Kem Birch's minutes go up to a degree. Now, Canada went small, right? So Kem's minutes were only 5 minutes, but you're seeing that Kem is being inserted in those bench units when there is a center that is a little bit more physical, a little bit more aggressive, and Kelly's been having some issues with that, and I hope he's able to figure that out. Like, we've seen him handle those matchups at least like better than what we've seen so far in previous Olympics or previous games with Canada, and hopefully he can figure that out. But at the moment, he has not been great. Obviously, the 3-point shots have been a little bit up and down, but he did make some nice passes out of the middle in the zone. There was one where he did a quick pitch out to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who relocated to the wing on a 2-3 zone, and he hit a shot. So hopefully he can come around. Trey Lyles was, again, he only played 10 minutes, but he made a 3, and that's obviously very good to see. Canada's not shooting a lot of threes, and that is kind of their MO, but they did make 60% of their 2-point field goals. They were getting into the paint at will against Spain, similar to other matchups that we've seen so far in the Olympics. And RJ Barrett, another great game from him, 16 points, 6 of 10. He made his only 3-pointer, and free throws wise, he went 3 of 4. So he continues to find those areas. And when we talk about, and I mentioned that Canada's finding those spots on the court and they're maintaining their ball movement, a lot of it is coming from RJ Barrett inserting himself into space and making good decisions out of it, and he's continuing to finish at the basket. This is like a great thing to see for the Raptors as well, because we're seeing a lot of this European offense, and that is what Darko Rajakovic wants to instill so far into the system. And since they made that trade, Pascal, OG go out, RJ and IQ come in. The style that they want to play, which is a lot of movement, a lot of pull-up threes, a lot of like cutting off the ball, he's a seamless fit, and we're kind of seeing the best version of him come out. So Canada, as I said, we will wait to find out what happens between France and Germany. Once we know that, we will know where Canada is seated, and we'll find out who they will play in the quarterfinals, looking at the upcoming games board. And as I said, the men's team, Tuesday, they will find out who they play. The women's 3x3 team, they are currently 3-1. They lost to Germany, which is the world number 1 in this tournament, but they're doing very well. They're playing the United States, I believe, as I speak, and we'll see where that goes. The women's team, they face Nigeria on Sunday, so they do still have an outside chance of making the quarterfinals, as hilarious as it is. They're currently, they are a -26. If they can beat Nigeria by roughly 20, probably it would be better to beat them by 30, but if they beat them by 20, maybe they're in that -6 point differential, and they got a shot to make it to the quarterfinals, as funny as it is, but there is going to be some competition for them to get one of those spots. So there you go. You are updated. Thanks so much for listening and watching, and we'll talk to you very soon. Have a great weekend.